The Mojave Desert doesn't forgive mistakes. At 0347 hours, under a moonless Arizona sky, Corporal Wren Ashford lay motionless behind her M110 rifle. The thermal scope painted the world in shades of green and shadow. 1,847 meters downrange, a muzzle flash bloomed like a dying star. The bullet cracked past her head with a sound like tearing silk. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, just exhaled slowly and whispered into the darkness. "Found you." Her finger moved to the trigger. The world narrowed to a single point of light through her father's battered scope. Wind pushed against her right cheek. 7 miles per hour, gusting to 10. The yarn tied to her barrel danced in the breeze, ancient technology in a world of electronics. The hostile sniper was good, professional, patient. He had thermals, custom optics, a rifle that cost more than most cars. He'd killed 23 American personnel over 5 years. Border Patrol agents, Marines, Rangers, men and women who never saw him coming. They called him El Fantasma, the ghost. Tonight he'd learned there was another ghost in these mountains. Wren's breathing slowed. Her heartbeat dropped to 58 beats per minute. Muscle memory built over 10,000 hours took over. She wasn't thinking anymore, just calculating, adjusting, becoming. The math appeared in her mind without conscious thought. 580 inches of bullet drop, 48 feet, the height of a 4-story building. Coriolis effect pushed the round 1.8 minutes of angle right. Spin drift added another 1.2. The wind would carry it 6 inches if she shot now, 12 if she waited for the gust. But the gust would pass. Wind always fell between the surges. Her father had taught her that. 3 seconds of calm, that's all she needed. The yarn went slack. She squeezed. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. The report echoed across the canyon like thunder rolling through empty churches. 3.4 seconds of flight time. An eternity compressed into heartbeats. Downrange, the muzzle flash went dark. The radio crackled. "Hostile sniper down. Confirmed kill. 1847 meters. Who made that shot?" Wren's voice was barely a whisper. "Sector 4. Ghost." Silence on the net. Then quietly, almost reverently, "Jesus Christ." She closed her eyes and thought of her father. "I finished it, Dad, just like you taught me." 72 hours earlier, the transport rattled down Arizona State Route 82 like a paint shaker full of loose bolts. Wren sat in the back, rifle case across her knees, watching the Huachuca Mountains rise through the dusty window. The peaks cut the horizon into jagged teeth. Somewhere in those mountains, 3 years ago, her father had died. Same sector, same terrain, same enemy. She'd come back to finish what he'd started. The 4 other shooters in the truck didn't talk to her. They talked around her, over her, through her as if she were made of glass. Gunnery Sergeant Kane Holloway sat directly across, 6'2" of coiled muscle and supreme confidence. His custom Barrett MRAD rested in a case that probably cost more than Wren's entire kit. He'd been checking his phone for the last 20 minutes, scrolling through ballistics apps with the casual arrogance of a man who'd never missed a shot that mattered. 18 grand, he said to no one in particular. Custom barrel, match-grade trigger, Schmidt and Bender optics. Thing shoots half-minute of angle at 2,000 meters. Captain Rook Mercer glanced up from his own rifle case. "Mine's the Accuracy International, 15.5. Modular system, 3 caliber conversions. British engineering." "British," Holloway snorted. "You mean overpriced and unreliable." Says the Marine carrying a rifle designed by computer nerds. Sergeant Barrett Cole laughed from the front seat. His custom rig sat beside him, a sleek, black monster that looked more like a NASA prototype than a weapon. "You ladies can argue brand loyalty all day. Mine cost $22,000 and it's never missed. Hand-lap barrel, titanium action, carbon fiber everything. It's basically a spaceship that shoots bullets." Wren said nothing. just stared out the window and ran her thumb along the worn edge of her rifle case. The plastic was scarred from a decade of use, scratched, dented, held together with duct tape in two places. Inside was an M110 semi-automatic sniper system. Standard issue, $8,000 retail. No upgrades, no custom parts, just a rifle that had seen 3 deployments and still shot true. And mounted on top, her father's scope. Desert Storm era Leupold Mark IV. Manufactured in 1991. The finish was worn down to bare brass in places where his hands had gripped it through 2 wars. The adjustment knobs were smooth from 30 years of dialing. The glass was scratched, but it still worked, still saw, still killed. Holloway finally looked at her, really looked. His eyes tracked from her face down to the rifle case, then back up. She could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, the dismissal forming like frost on glass. "That your kit?" he asked. "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant." "What are you running?" "M110, standard configuration." His eyebrows rose. "Standard? As in straight from the armory?" "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant." "No upgrades? No custom parts?" "No, Gunnery Sergeant." Mercer leaned forward. "Let me get this straight. You brought a basic issue rifle to the Southwest Border Defense exercise? Against competition-grade custom builds?" "Yes, sir." Cole turned in his seat. "Sweetheart, this isn't basic training. This is the real deal. Best snipers from every service branch. Some of these guys have 50-plus confirmed kills. They're shooting sub-MOA rifles that cost more than your car." "I don't have a car, Sergeant. That's not the point." "Then what is the point, Sergeant?" Holloway smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "The point is you're outgunned before we even start. That pea shooter might be fine for qualifying at Benning, but this is different. This is for the professionals." Wren turned back to the window. "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant." The transport hit a pothole. Everyone's gears shifted. Holloway's phone slipped off his knee and clattered to the floor. He swore and picked it up, checking for cracks. Wren's rifle case didn't move. She'd wedged it exactly right, balanced against her knee at the precise angle to absorb shock. Old habit, her father's habit. "Take care of your weapon," he used to say, "and it'll take care of you. Treat it like a rental car, and it'll fail when you need it most." The transport crested a hill, and Fort Huachuca sprawled below them. 38 square miles of military installation pressed against the Mexican border. Ranges, barracks, command buildings, motor pools. And beyond the fence, 20 miles of Arizona desert, stretching toward mountains that looked like God's knuckles dragging the earth. Beautiful, deadly, unforgiving, just like her father had described it. They called it an exercise, the Southwest Border Defense Readiness Assessment. Official paperwork said it was training, evaluation metrics for sniper teams, live fire qualifications under field conditions. But everyone knew the truth. Cartel scouts had been probing the fence line for 6 weeks. Small teams, professional movement, military gear. Intel suggested they were mapping defensive positions, counting response times, looking for gaps in coverage. Something was coming, something big. The exercise was a cover, a way to flood the border with the best shooters in the American military without calling it what it really was. Preparation for war. Wren stepped off the transport and immediately started cataloging. 16 other vehicles, 38 shooters total, Marines, Army Rangers, Border Patrol BORTAC. Everyone with their custom rifles, their expensive optics, their ballistic computers, and laser rangefinders. She was the only one carrying standard issue, the only woman. And at 5'3", the smallest person on the range by a significant margin. 3 strikes before she even opened her rifle case. The motor pool opened onto a packed dirt assembly area. A raised platform stood at one end, American flags snapping in the desert wind. Behind it, the Huachuca Mountains rose like a wall of stone in shadow. Wren moved to the back of the formation. Old habit, stay quiet, stay small, let the work speak. Holloway found her there 5 minutes later. He wasn't alone. 3 other shooters flanked him like wolves testing prey. "I've been thinking," Holloway said. His tone was casual, conversational, the kind of friendly that had teeth underneath. "About your rifle situation." "It's not a situation, Gunnery Sergeant." "Sure it is. See, when you wash out in the qualifiers, people are going to ask questions. They're going to say the Marines sent someone who wasn't ready. That reflects poorly on the unit." "I'm ready, Gunnery Sergeant." "Are you?" He gestured to her rifle case. "Because that antique you're carrying maxes out at 1,800 meters on a good day. The final qualification is going to push 2,000, maybe more. You physically can't make those shots with that equipment." "My father made a 1680 shot with this scope, Gunnery Sergeant. Desert Storm, 1991. Something flickered across Holloway's face. Not quite respect, more like recognition that he'd stumbled into deeper water than expected. "Your father was a sniper?" "Master Gunnery Sergeant Flint Ashford, Marine Scout Sniper. Gulf War, Somalia. 68 confirmed kills." Silence. The other 3 shooters exchanged glances. Mercer spoke first. "Flint Ashford, the Mogadishu Overwatch?" "Yes, sir. I heard stories at Quantico. Instructor Cadre said he could read wind conditions that would ground other snipers. Made a 940-meter shot through a sandstorm to save a pin patrol." "He did, sir." Holloway's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being one-upped. "Well, that's real impressive, Corporal. But unless your daddy's ghost is going to be spotting for you, you're still shooting with inferior equipment against the best rifles money can buy. That's just math." Wren met his eyes, didn't look away, didn't back down. "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant, it's just math." The briefing started at 1400 hours in a metal shed that smelled like gun oil and old coffee. 40 folding chairs faced a projector screen. Wren sat in the back row. Holloway and his group claimed the front like territory. Master Chief Warrant Officer Thane Lockhart stepped to the podium. He was 42, with the kind of weathered face that came from 20 years in the desert sun. Silver touched his temples. Scars crossed his forearms. He moved with the economy of motion that marked career snipers. Nothing wasted, nothing rushed. "Gentlemen," he said, then paused. His eyes found Wren in the back. "And lady, welcome to Fort Huachuca." The projector flickered to life. Satellite imagery of the border fence. Thermal overlays showing movement patterns. Timestamps going back 6 weeks. "What you're about to hear is classified at the secret level. Do not discuss outside this room." He clicked to the next slide. Grainy photographs of armed men in tactical gear, taken through long-range optics. "For the past month and a half, we've observed 17 separate incursions by what we believe are cartel reconnaissance elements. They're mapping our defensive positions, counting personnel, testing response times." Another slide, a map with red circles marking locations. "They're professionals, military training. Some of them are probably former Mexican special forces. They move in 4 to 6-man teams. They operate at night, and they're very, very good at not being seen." Lockhart's voice hardened. "Intel suggests they're preparing for a major push. Smuggling operation, or possibly something worse. We don't know when. Could be tomorrow, could be 3 months from now. But it's coming." He let that sink in. "Which brings us to why you're here. This exercise is training, yes, but it's also operational readiness. Every shooter in this room is now on 48-hour standby for live fire engagement. Your weapons are loaded, your sectors are assigned. If hostile forces cross that fence, you will engage with lethal force." The room shifted. 40 professionals suddenly paying very close attention. "This is not a drill. This is not a competition. This is war waiting to happen, and you're the first line of defense." Lockhart clicked to the final slide, a list of names and sector assignments. "Preliminary qualifications start tomorrow at 0600, 800 meters, 1200, 1,500. Top 5 scorers advance to final qualification. Location and distance to be determined. He scanned the room. Questions? Holloway raised his hand. Sir, what's the final qualification distance? Lockhart smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. When you qualify for it, you'll find out. Dismissed. Wren spent the evening the way she always did before a shoot. Alone, quiet, preparing. She found a spot behind the barracks where the desert stretched unbroken to the mountains. No lights, no people, just wind and stars and the smell of creosote. Her rifle case lay open at her feet. The M110 gleamed in the moonlight. She'd cleaned it twice already, but started again anyway. Bore brush through the barrel, patches until they came out white. A thin film of oil on the bolt carrier. Her father's scope sat beside the rifle. She picked it up carefully, reverently, feeling the weight of 3 decades in her hands. The brass was worn smooth where his thumb had adjusted elevation. The focus ring bore the ghost impressions of his fingers. If she closed her eyes, she could almost feel him sitting beside her, almost hear his voice. Wren, he used to say, most people look at distance and see impossible. You need to see geometry. She pulled out his notebook, leather-bound, water-stained. The pages were filled with hand-drawn diagrams and calculations in his precise engineer's handwriting. Ballistics tables, wind formulas, range cards from deployments going back 30 years. She turned to the last entry. It was dated 3 weeks before he died. The handwriting was shakier than usual. His hands had already been failing him, the sickness eating through his body while he tried to finish one last calculation. Counter-sniper tactics, 1,800 meters plus. The page was half finished. Bullet drop calculations complete. Wind tables done. But the section on thermal camouflage was blank. The notes on timing shots between heartbeats, unwritten. He'd run out of time. Below the incomplete equations, he'd written a single line. The ink was slightly smeared, as if he'd been writing fast. Or crying. Wren, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Someone has to finish this fight. Make me proud. Dad. She traced the words with her finger. 3 years ago, she'd received this notebook at his funeral. Hadn't been able to open it for 6 months. When she finally did, these words had broken something inside her that hadn't healed yet. Footsteps crunched on gravel behind her. She didn't turn, didn't reach for her sidearm. The steps were too measured, too professional to be a threat. Mind if I sit? It was Lockhart. It's your base, Master Chief. He lowered himself onto a nearby rock with a grunt that spoke of old injuries. For a minute, they just sat there, 2 professionals watching the same horizon. I knew your father, Lockhart said finally. I know. Somalia, 1993. He mentioned you in his letters home. Said you were the best spotter he ever worked with. He saved my life. Mogadishu, Black Hawk down. I was pinned in a courtyard, 6 hostiles closing in. Your father was on a rooftop 940 meters away. He put down all 6 in under 30 seconds. Never saw shooting like that before or since. Wren nodded. She'd heard the story. Not from her father. He never talked about his kills, but from other Marines who'd been there, who'd watched Flint Ashford do the impossible and make it look routine. Lockhart gestured to the rifle. That his scope? Yes, Master Chief. I remember it. He modified the reticle himself. Hand-etched marks for long-range holdovers. Used to say modern scopes had too many moving parts. That simplicity was more reliable than complexity. He was right, Master Chief. Sometimes, Lockhart paused. Other times he was stubborn. Refused to adapt when adaptation would have saved his life. Refused to accept help when help was available. Wren looked at him. Is there a point to this, Master Chief? The point is your father was brilliant. Best sniper I ever served with. But he had a blind spot the size of Texas. He believed excellence was solitary, that teamwork slowed him down, that asking for help was weakness. And it got him killed. 3 years ago, Right out there. Lockhart pointed toward the dark mountains. Border Patrol hired him as a civilian consultant. Solo overwatch during a smuggler interdiction. Cartel sent a counter-sniper. Your father spotted him first, had position, had the shot. But he never called for backup, never repositioned when the tactical situation changed, just tried to outshoot the guy. Ren's jaw tightened. She knew this story, had lived with it for 3 years, replayed it in her mind 1,000 times, wondering if there was something she could have done, some warning she could have given. The cartel sniper got him on the third exchange. Lockhart continued quietly. El Fantasma, they call him. The Ghost. 23 confirmed kills on American personnel over 6 years. Still operating in this sector. Still killing our people. I know who killed my father, Master Chief. Do you? Lockhart met her eyes. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you came here with your father's rifle, your father's scope, and your father's lone wolf mentality. You set up in the backup formations. You don't talk to anyone. You work alone. And I'm wondering if history is about to repeat itself. Ren stood, picked up her rifle case with movements that were deliberately controlled. With respect, Master Chief, you don't know anything about me. No? He stood too. Then prove me wrong. Tomorrow. On the range. Show me you learn from his mistakes instead of just memorizing his methods. Show me you understand that being the best shot means nothing if you're dead because you refuse to trust your team. He started to walk away, then stopped. One more thing. The final qualification? It's 1,847 meters. Same distance as the longest confirmed kill in this sector. Your father attempted it twice, missed both times by inches. Longest he ever made was 1,680. Lockhart's expression softened, just for a moment. Long enough for Ren to see the grief behind the gruffness. If you make it to finals, you'll get your shot. Finish what he started. But do it smarter than he did. Do it with backup. Do it as part of a team. Because if El Fantasma is still out there, and intel suggests he is, you're going to need every advantage you can get. He walked away, boots crunching on gravel, leaving Ren alone with her father's ghost in the dark mountains where he'd died. She looked down at the notebook, at his incomplete calculations, at the message he'd left for a daughter he knew he'd never see graduate from sniper school. I'll finish it, Dad, she whispered to the desert wind. But I'll do it my way. Not alone. Not like you. I'll do it better. The shooting started at 0600 sharp, 800 meters, standard qualification distance, 13 targets spread across the range. Each shooter got 13 rounds. Score was simple, hit or miss. The custom rifles went first. Holloway stepped to the line with his Barrett MRAD. The rifle looked like something from a science fiction movie, all black carbon fiber in aggressive angles. He settled into position, checked his ballistic computer, adjusted his electronic scope. Ready, he called. The target appeared, a steel silhouette, man-sized, painted desert tan to blend with the background. Holloway fired. The target rang like a bell. Hit. He worked through all 13 with mechanical precision. 13 shots, 13 hits, 0 misses. Perfect score. Mercer followed. His accuracy international was slightly smaller, slightly faster. He shot 13 for 13 in 42 seconds. Cole took 53 seconds, but achieved the same perfect score. One by one, the custom rifles sang their expensive song. 12 shooters, 12 perfect scores. Then Ren stepped to the line. She carried her M110 like it weighed nothing. No scope bag, no shooting mat, no ballistic computer or laser rangefinder. Just the rifle, a box of ammunition, and a piece of yarn tied to the barrel. Holloway stood behind her with several other shooters, arms crossed, waiting. This should be interesting, he muttered. Ren dropped prone, settled the rifle, looked through her father's scope and saw the target swimming in scratched glass and worn brass fittings. She adjusted elevation by feel, counting clicks without looking at the dial. The wind pushed from left to right, 6 miles per hour steady, no gusting. She watched the yarn dance, watched dust devils spiral across the desert floor, felt the pressure change in her sinuses that meant temperature was rising. She did the math in her head. No calculator, no computer, just the formulas her father had burned into her brain through 10,000 repetitions. Bullet drop at 800 meters, 103 inches. Wind deflection, 4 inches right. Spin drift, zero point 0.7 minutes. Coriolis effect, negligible at this range and compass heading. Her breathing slowed. The first target appeared. She fired. The target rang. She worked the bolt. Smooth, mechanical. The spent casing arced through the air and landed in the dirt with a soft clink that seemed loud in the morning quiet. Second target, ring. Third target, ring. The custom rifles had been fast. She was faster. Not because she was rushing, because she wasn't thinking, just reacting. Her body knew the rhythm, knew the timing, knew exactly how much pressure to apply to the trigger before the shot broke clean. 13 shots in 37 seconds. 13 rings echoing across the range like a church bell, calling the faithful to worship. Perfect score. She stood, cleared her weapon, and walked off the line without looking at anyone. No showboating, no celebration. Just professional competence expressed through action. Behind her, she heard Mercer's voice. Quiet, slightly awed. Okay, she can shoot. Cole's response was equally quiet. That wasn't shooting. That was something else entirely. The 1,200-meter range was where the custom rifles started to earn their money. Wind became a factor. Mirage started bending light. Slight variations in elevation meant significant changes in point of impact. This was real sniping, not just target practice. This was where the ballistic computers and laser rangefinders and electronic scopes justified their price tags. Holloway consulted his handheld device, reading wind speed, temperature, barometric pressure, and humidity. The device crunched numbers and spat out a perfect firing solution. He dialed his scope accordingly, 13 for 13. Mercer used a slightly different system. His rifle had an integrated ballistic calculator that automatically adjusted the reticle based on range input. He just had to aim and shoot, 13 for 13. Cole's rig was even more sophisticated. Laser rangefinder, wind meter, and computer all talked to each other wirelessly. The scope literally showed him exactly where the bullet would impact. Point-and-click warfare. 13 for 13. 8 shooters maintained perfect scores. Wren stepped to the line with her yarn and her father's scope. She didn't consult a device, didn't pull out a calculator, just lay prone and started counting. Mirage boils. When heat rises off the desert floor, it creates visible waves in the air, shimmers. Most people just see distortion, an annoyance that makes targets fuzzy. But if you counted how many waves pass per second, you could calculate exact wind speed at the target. Her father had taught her this in 2005 when she was 6 years old. Before smartphones, before ballistic apps, back when snipers had to be part mathematician and part mystic. Back when observation was the only tool that mattered. She counted. 4 boils per second. That translated to 5 miles per hour wind at target distance. But her yarn showed 6 miles per hour at her position, which meant wind speed was decreasing with distance. The bullet would drift less than the yarn suggested. Common phenomenon in morning conditions, when the desert was still cool, but the sun was starting to heat the air. She adjusted, not with a calculator, with intuition built from 10,000 hours of watching wind, with understanding that came from repetition so constant it had become instinct. First shot, ring. She worked through the 13 targets methodically. No rush, no wasted motion. Every shot a perfect repetition of the one before. Like watching a master craftsman work. No flourish, no unnecessary movement, just pure function. 13 for 13. As she cleared her weapon, she heard one of the range safety officers speaking into his radio. "Yeah, she's running standard M110. No computer. I'm not kidding. She's counting mirage boils. Like it's 1970. A pause. Someone on the other end asking a question. "Lockhart wants to know if it's working? She just shot perfect at 1200. You tell me." 1500 meters was where shooters started failing. This was near the maximum effective range for most sniper systems. The bullet was slowing down, becoming unstable. Wind had 3 full seconds to push it off course. Mirage could create ghost images that made targets appear 6 inches from their actual location. Temperature variations affected velocity. Altitude mattered. Everything mattered. This was where $70,000 rifles earned their keep, or tried to. The first shooter missed 4 of 13. The second missed 6. By the time Holloway stepped up, only 3 shooters had maintained perfect scores through all 3 ranges. He settled into his position, consulted his devices, and fired. 12 hits, 1 miss. His first mistake of the day. He stood, jaw tight, and walked off the line without comment. The miss sat on him like a weight. You could see it in his shoulders. Mercer did slightly better. 12 for 13. Cole managed 11. His expensive rig was struggling with the extreme mirage conditions. The custom rifles were starting to show their limitations. Or maybe their operators were. The line between equipment failure and human error became blurry at extreme range. When Wren's turn came, the heat was pushing 103 degrees. The mirage was so thick it looked like the entire desert was underwater. Electronic rangefinders were struggling. Laser beams scattered in the thermal distortion like light through a broken prism. She lay prone and just watched. Counted. Calculated. The mirage boils came faster in the heat. 6 per second now. That translated to 7.5 miles per hour wind. But there was something else. A rhythm to the distortion. A pattern. Like music if you knew how to listen. Wind wasn't steady. It came in pulses. 7.5 average, but gusting to 9. The gust came every 11 seconds. Between the gusts, the wind dropped to 6. Predictable. Reliable. Usable. She could shoot during the gusts and miss, or wait for the calm between them and hit. The first target appeared. She watched. Counted. Felt the rhythm of the desert. Let her breathing sync with the wind's natural cadence. Gust passed. Calm window opening. She fired. Ring. She worked through all 13 like that, shooting between heartbeats, between gusts, between moments when the desert itself seemed to hold its breath. Operating in the gaps that electronics couldn't see and computers couldn't calculate. 13 for 13. Perfect. When she stood and turned around, every shooter on the range was staring. Even the range safety officers had stopped pretending to work. Lockhart stood 30 feet away, arms crossed, expression unreadable. But she saw something in his eyes that hadn't been there this morning. Recognition. He'd seen this before. 19 years ago, in Somalia, when her father had done the same thing during a sandstorm, counting wind without instruments, shooting between gusts like he could feel the rhythms of the earth itself. Like father, like daughter, but better, because she wasn't alone anymore. Lockhart walked forward slowly. "Where did you learn to read mirage like that?" "My father, Master Chief." "I know who taught you, Corporal. I'm asking where he learned it." "He said his instructor at sniper school was a Korean War veteran. Said the old-timers didn't have electronics, so they had to be better observers. Had to see what the wind was doing instead of just measuring it." Lockhart nodded slowly. "Sergeant First Class Raymond McKay. He was my instructor too. Toughest son of a bitch I ever met. Meaner than a snake and twice as patient. He used to say technology makes you dependent. Observation makes you lethal." He looked at her rifle. At her father's scope with its scratched glass and worn brass. Flint was McKay's best student. I guess he passed it on before he died. "He tried, Master Chief." "Looks like he succeeded." Lockhart raised his voice so the whole range could hear. Preliminary qualifications are complete. Top 5 scorers advance to final qualification tomorrow at 600. The shooters are Corporal Ashford, Gunnery Sergeant Holloway, Captain Mercer, Sergeant Cole, and Staff Sergeant Williams. He paused. Let the significance of what was coming settle on them. Final qualification will be held at Range 7. Distance is 1,847 meters. That's 1.04 miles for those keeping track. It's the longest shot ever attempted at this facility. It's also the exact distance where Master Gunnery Sergeant Flint Ashford was killed 3 years ago by a cartel counter-sniper. Every eye turned to Wren. One shot, Lockhart continued. One target, winner takes all. Be ready. Dismissed. The shooters dispersed, heading back to barracks to prep equipment and run calculations. Wren stayed on the range. She pulled out her father's notebook and turned to the last page. The incomplete counter-sniper tactics. The unfinished calculations. The message he'd left. At the bottom, in his shaky handwriting, 1847 M desert conditions. Solve for wind, drop, Coriolis. If you're reading this, I'm gone. Someone has to finish this fight. Make me proud. Dad. She looked up at the mountains where he died, where El Fantasma had killed him from 1,847 meters away, where tomorrow she'd prove that his daughter had learned not just his skills, but the lesson he'd never mastered. That excellence wasn't solitary, that the best snipers didn't work alone, that trusting your team didn't make you weak, it made you lethal. I will, Dad. Tomorrow, I'll finish it, but I'll do it better than you did. That night, Wren worked in the armory by herself. She'd been given permission to use the facilities for rifle maintenance. The room smelled like gun oil and copper. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. She had the entire space to herself. The M110 lay disassembled on the workbench. She'd cleaned every part twice already, but couldn't sleep. Needed to do something with her hands while her brain ran the math that wouldn't shut off. 1,847 meters. Bullet drop, 580 inches. 48 feet, the height of a 4-story building. The bullet would arc like a rainbow before coming back down. Wind at 7 miles per hour would push the bullet 12 inches right. A full foot of drift. Coriolis effect at this latitude, shooting east, 1.8 minutes of angle. The rotation of the Earth itself becoming a factor. Spin drift from the right-hand rifling, 1.2 minutes. The bullet's spin causing it to drift right as it flew. Temperature at 103 degrees meant thinner air, higher velocity, less drop. Subtract 0.5 minutes from elevation. The math was complex but solvable. Her father had taught her how. Had made her run these calculations so many times they become automatic. Muscle memory of the mind. What he hadn't taught her was how to do it under pressure, how to make the shot when everyone was watching, when failure meant proving every doubter right, when missing meant dishonoring his memory. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn, knew the footsteps. Holloway's gait was distinctive, confident, slightly heavy on the right foot where an old injury had never quite healed right. Can't sleep either? He asked. No, Gunnery Sergeant. He walked to the bench, looked at her disassembled rifle, picked up the bolt carrier, examined it in the fluorescent light, set it down gently. I owe you an apology. That made her turn. Holloway's expression was different, harder, more honest. The arrogance had been stripped away by what he'd witnessed on the range today. I dismissed you because of your equipment, because you're small, because you're a woman. I made assumptions based on prejudice instead of performance. I was wrong. Yes, Gunnery Sergeant, you were. He almost smiled. You're not going to make this easy, are you? Would you, Gunnery Sergeant? No, I wouldn't. He pulled up a stool, sat down heavily. I know your father's reputation. Every Marine sniper does. Flint Ashford is a legend. But legends are easy to dismiss when you've never seen them in action. When all you have are stories that sound too good to be true. He was just a man, Gunnery Sergeant. A man who practiced more than most people thought was sane. That's not what the stories say. They say he could shoot in conditions that would make other snipers pack it in and go home. Sandstorms, rain, wind that would blow around 10 feet off target. He just adapted, calculated, made the shot anyway. Wren picked up her father's scope, ran her thumb over the worn brass, feeling the texture of 3 decades under her fingers. He died trying to make an 1847-meter shot 3 years ago, 20 miles from here. Cartel counter-sniper. They were both trying for the same target. The cartel sniper got him first. 3 shots. Third one was the kill shot. Holloway was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. That's why you're here. Not for the exercise. For him. To finish what he couldn't. I'm here because the Marines assigned me here, Gunnery Sergeant. Bullshit. You requested this posting. You knew this exercise was happening. You came here to finish what he started. To prove that his daughter could do what he couldn't. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. The truth was written in every careful movement as she cleaned his scope, in the way she handled it like a sacred object. Holloway stood, started to leave, stopped at the door. Tomorrow, when you make that shot, and I think you will, it won't be because of that scope. It won't be because of your rifle. It'll be because you're better than your equipment, better than the rest of us, better than you have any right to be at 25 years old. I'm not better, Gunnery Sergeant. I just pay attention. Same thing, Corporal. Same thing. He paused. One more thing. If El Fantasma is out there, the sniper who killed your father, and if Intel puts him in your sector during live operations, don't go after him alone. Call for backup. Use your team. Don't make your father's mistakes. I'll consider that, Gunnery Sergeant. Don't consider it. Do it. Because I've lost too many good Marines to pride and stubbornness. I won't lose another one, especially not one who shoots like you do. After he left, Wren finished reassembling her rifle in the dark. Muscle memory guided her hands. Each part clicked into place with the certainty of a puzzle solved 1,000 times before. She thought about her father, about his 68 confirmed kills across 2 wars, about the way he'd worked alone, trusted no one, needed no help, about how that particular kind of excellence had become a cage that killed him when he needed backup most, about the way she was different. Tomorrow she'd make the shot he never could. She'd prove that his daughter had learned not just his skills, but the wisdom he died without understanding. That the best warriors weren't the ones who needed no one. They were the ones who knew when to trust their team. Tomorrow, she'd finish his fight. But she'd do it her way, not alone. Never alone again. Dawn broke over the Huachuca Mountains like a wound opening in the sky. Red light spilled across the desert floor, painting the rifle range in shades of rust and shadow. The air was already warm at 0600 hours. By noon, it would be cooking. Wren stood at the firing line, rifle in hand, watching the target appear in her scope, 1,847 meters downrange. A steel silhouette no bigger than her thumbnail at this distance. From here it looked like a postage stamp balanced on the edge of the world. The kind of shot that separated good snipers from legends. The kind her father had died trying to make. 4 other shooters stood beside her, spaced 10 meters apart. Holloway to her left, Barrett MRAD gleaming like a showroom rifle. Mercer to her right with his Accuracy International. Cole and Williams further down the line, $70,000 worth of custom rifles between them. And Wren with her $8,000 M110 and her father's worn scope. Lockhart stood behind them, stopwatch in hand. Gentlemen, Corporal, this is the final qualification. 1 shot, 1 target, closest to center mass wins. You'll shoot in order of preliminary rankings. Corporal Ashford earned top score, so she shoots last. Holloway glanced at her. Something passed between them. Not quite respect, more like acknowledgement. Recognition that they were about to witness something that would be talked about for years. "Sergeant Williams, you're up." Williams settled into position, consulted his ballistic computer, dialed his scope, took 3 deep breaths, and fired. The shot echoed across the desert like distant thunder. 1,847 meters away, dust puffed 6 inches left of the target. Miss. Williams stood, jaw tight, and walked off the line without speaking. "Sergeant Cole." Cole took his time. Laser rangefinder, wind meter, handheld ballistic calculator. He fed numbers into devices that cost more than most people's annual salary. Dialed, adjusted, checked again, fired. The target rang. Hit. But when the spotting scope confirmed placement, it was 4 inches right of center. Good, not great. Captain Mercer. Mercer's approach was methodical. Less technology, more observation. He watched the mirage for 2 full minutes, studied wind indicators at multiple ranges, built a mental model of the environment. Fired. Ring. 2 inches left of center. Better than Cole. Close to perfect. Gunnery Sergeant Holloway. Holloway settled behind his Barrett like he'd been born there. The rifle was an extension of his body. $18,000 of precision engineering and supreme confidence. He didn't rush, checked his devices, verified his data, made microscopic adjustments to his scope. The wind shifted. Wren sawed in the yarn on her barrel, a gust building from the west. Holloway didn't see it. His wind meter was electronic, sampling at 1-second intervals. The gust happened between samples. He fired during the surge. Ring. 1 inch high, 1 inch right. Excellent shot, maybe the best of the day. Holloway stood confident. He'd won. Everyone knew it. Then Lockhart spoke. "Corporal Ashford, you're up." Wren moved to the firing line like she was walking through water. Everything felt slow, heavy. The weight of her father's ghost pressed on her shoulders. She dropped prone, settled the rifle, looked through his scope and saw the scratches in the glass that she'd memorized over 10,000 hours, saw the worn brass fittings, saw the target swimming in heat shimmer like something glimpsed through tears. The math appeared in her mind without conscious thought. 580 inches of bullet drop, 12 inches of wind drift at 7 miles per hour. But the wind wasn't steady. It pulsed, gusted, breathed like a living thing. She watched her yarn, counted mirage boils, felt the temperature change on her skin. 7 miles per hour average, gusting to 9. The gust came every 11 seconds. She waited, watched, felt the rhythm of the desert. The gust passed. 3 seconds of calm, maybe 4. She adjusted for 580 inches of drop, 12 inches of wind, 1.8 minutes for Coriolis, 1.2 for spindrift, subtracted 0.5 for temperature. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat dropped to 56 beats per minute. The world narrowed to a single point of light. She squeezed. The rifle bucked. The report cracked across the range. 3.4 seconds of flight time. She knew before the spotter confirmed. Dead center. Perfect. Lockhart's voice was quiet, almost reverent. Center mass, perfect placement. Winner, Corporal Wren Ashford. For 5 seconds, nobody moved. Then Holloway walked over and extended his hand. "That was the finest piece of shooting I've ever witnessed." She took his hand. "Thank you, Gunnery Sergeant." Mercer joined them. "Your father would be proud." "I hope so, sir." Lockhart approached last. His expression was complicated, pride mixed with something that looked almost like grief. "Flint tried that shot twice, missed both times. You just made it look easy." "It wasn't easy, Master Chief. It was 30 years of preparation." "His 30 years. Your execution. That's legacy, Corporal. That's what it means to honor the dead. You don't just remember them, you finish what they started." He handed her a slip of paper. "Your new assignment. Effective immediately. Sector 4, Border Overwatch. Live fire authorized. Intel suggests cartel activity in your area of responsibility tonight. Ren read the coordinates. Her stomach dropped. Sector 4 was 20 miles east, the same grid where her father had died. Master Chief, is this? Yes, same location, same mission profile. But this time you'll have backup. 5-person team. Holloway will be your spotter. Mercer and Cole on flanks. Williams on radio. With respect, Master Chief, I work alone. Your father worked alone. Look how that turned out. Lockhart's voice was hard. You're part of a team now. Act like it, or I'll pull you from the mission. Their eyes met. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle it solo. But she saw her father's face in her mind, saw him lying in the desert, killed by a counter-sniper he'd never called for help against. Yes, Master Chief. Good. You deploy at 2200 hours. Get some rest. Tonight, you earn your keep. The briefing room at 1900 hours was packed with people who hadn't been there that morning. Intelligence officers, signal specialists. A Colonel Wren didn't recognize. And on the screen, satellite imagery showing movement patterns along the border that made her skin crawl. The intel officer spoke in clipped, professional tones. At 1430 hours, Signals Intelligence picked up encrypted radio traffic suggesting a major operation tonight. Multiple teams, military-grade equipment, coordinated timing. He clicked to thermal imagery. We count 17 heat signatures in 3 separate groups. Group Alpha is here, he pointed. 6 individuals carrying what appears to be a mortar system. Group Bravo here. 8 individuals, mixed small arms and at least 1 crew-served weapon. Group Charlie here. 3 individuals, long guns, elevated position. Wren studied the positions. Professional placement. Overlapping fields of fire. Classic military tactics. Group Charlie concerns us most. Their position provides overwatch for the other 2 groups and covers approaches to Fort Huachuca. We assess them as counter-sniper element. The colonel spoke for the first time. What's their capability? Unknown, sir, but positioning suggests professional training, possibly former Mexican Special Forces. And their location? He paused. It's the same position used 3 years ago when Border Patrol consultant Flint Ashford was killed. Every eye in the room turned to Wren. The colonel looked at his notes. Corporal Ashford, you're the decedent's daughter? Yes, sir. And you just earned top score in the sniper qualification? Yes, sir. With the same rifle and scope your father used? Yes, sir. The colonel studied her for a long moment. How do you feel about returning to the location where your father died? Wren met his eyes. Honored, sir. He didn't finish the mission. I will. This isn't revenge, Corporal. This is tactical necessity. Can you maintain professional distance? Yes, sir. Revenge is emotional. This is mathematical. Something flickered across the colonel's face. Approval, maybe. Or recognition of something he'd seen before in professional warriors. Very well. Your team deploys at 2200 hours. ROE are weapons-free if hostile intent is confirmed. Priority targets are the mortar team and counter-sniper element. Questions? Holloway raised his hand. Sir, why not call in artillery or air support? Why risk snipers against a superior force? Because 17 hostiles with mortars inside American territory is a political nightmare. If we respond with artillery or airstrikes, it becomes an international incident. But if a small observation team happens to interdict them with precision fire, he let that hang. Plausible deniability, Gunnery Sergeant. This never happened. You were never there. Clear? Crystal, sir. Good. Dismissed. Except Corporal Ashford. A word. The room emptied. Wren stood at attention. The colonel came down from the podium. Up close, he was older than she'd thought. Silver in his hair. Scars on his hands. The look of a man who'd spent decades in hard places. Your father saved my life. Mogadishu, 1993. I was a second lieutenant leading my first patrol when we got ambushed. 6 hostiles, RPGs, small arms. We were pinned. Flint was on overwatch, 900 meters away. He dropped all 6 in under a minute. Ren said nothing. I went to his funeral, watched them fold the flag, watched you receive it. You were 22 years old and you didn't cry. Just stood there like you were carved from stone. You know what I thought? No, sir. I thought, that's Flint's daughter. She's going to be just like him. And I was right. You shoot like him, think like him, move like him. He paused. But you're not him, and that's good. Because Flint had a fatal flaw. He couldn't accept help, couldn't trust his team, thought he was better off alone. I'm aware, sir. Are you? Because tonight you're going back to the place where that flaw killed him. Same enemy, same terrain, same tactical situation. And I need to know you won't make his mistake. Ren looked him in the eye. I have backup, sir. Holloway, Mercer, Cole, Williams. I'm not alone. Good, because El Fantasma is out there. The sniper who killed your father. Intel suggests he's the counter-sniper in Group Charlie. And he's very, very good. So am I, sir. I know, that's why you're going. But if you get a shot on him, take it fast. Don't wait, don't hesitate. Don't give him the chance your father gave him. Invest? Yes, sir. Dismissed. At 2200 hours, 5 snipers loaded into a blacked-out Humvee and drove into the desert. No lights, no radio chatter. Just the rumble of the engine and the crunch of tires on gravel. The Huachuca Mountains rose ahead like broken teeth against a starlit sky. Ren sat in the back, rifle across her knees, running through calculations in her head. Sector 4 was elevated terrain overlooking a dry wash. Good fields of fire, multiple approach routes, defensible position. It was also a kill zone if you didn't respect it. Her father hadn't respected it, had thought his skill was enough. It wasn't. The Humvee stopped 3 kilometers from the objective. They dismounted in silence and began the approach on foot. Holloway on point, Mercer and Cole on flanks. Williams carrying the radio. Ren in the center, moving like a ghost through terrain her father had walked 3 years ago. She could feel his presence. Not literally, but the weight of memory. The sense of walking in footsteps that had led to a grave. They reached Sector 4 at 23:15 hours. The position was exactly as briefed. Elevated ridge, clear sight lines, natural cover. Ren settled into a depression between 2 rock formations. The same position her father had used. She could see his marks. Scuff marks on the rocks where he'd positioned his rifle. A small pile of brass where he'd fired his last shots. The ground was stained dark in one spot. Blood. His blood. She didn't touch it. Just set up her rifle 3 feet to the left and started scanning. Holloway settled beside her with his spotting scope. You okay? Affirmative. Bullshit. This is where he died. You don't have to pretend it doesn't affect you. It affects me, Gunnery Sergeant. But not right now. Right now, I'm working. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. Let's get to work. Through her scope, the desert stretched in shades of green and gray. Night vision transformed the world into something alien. She scanned the terrain methodically, left to right, near to far, looking for anything that didn't belong. At 23:40 hours, she found them. 1,200 meters downrange. 6 heat signatures moving in tactical formation. They were setting up something bulky, angular. Contact, 1,200 meters, grid November, Victor, 4-7. 6 individuals. They're assembling something. Holloway glassed them through his spotting scope. Confirmed, that's a mortar base plate. Tube is 82 millimeter. Russian design. They're setting up for indirect fire. Williams spoke into his radio. Quiet. Clipped. Relaying to command. Ren kept scanning. found Group Bravo at 900 meters, 8 fighters with rifles and what looked like a PKM machine gun. They were moving toward the fence line, and Group Charlie, she searched for 10 minutes before finding them. 1,847 meters, elevated ridge, 3 heat signatures, 2 spotters, and 1 shooter. The counter-sniper element, El Fantasma. Gunnery Sergeant, Group Charlie located, 1,847 meters, bearing 273, 3 individuals, sniper configuration. Holloway swung his scope. Took him a minute to find them at that range. Jesus, that's extreme distance. Can you reach them? I made the shot this morning at the same range. That was daylight, no wind, perfect conditions. This is dark, wind gusting, hostile environment. It's a different game. It's the same math, Gunnery Sergeant. Radio crackle. Command's voice. Sector 4, you are authorized to engage if hostile intent is confirmed. Do not initiate unless they fire first or threaten U.S. forces. Wren watched the mortar team through her scope. They were loading rounds, preparing to fire. At what? Fort Huachuca was 3 kilometers away, well within range of an 82-millimeter mortar. Gunnery Sergeant, they're preparing to fire. Intent is clear. Holloway was silent for 3 seconds, making the call that would change everything. Command, Sector 4, hostile mortar team preparing to engage Fort Huachuca, requesting permission to engage. Static, then, permission granted, weapons free, engage at will. Wren's world narrowed to the circle of her scope, 1,200 meters. Mortar crew leader directing the setup. He was the priority. Kill him, the team loses coordination. She calculated. Bullet drop, wind, temperature. Her hands moved through the adjustments without conscious thought. Breathing slowed. Heartbeat dropped. She squeezed. The rifle bucked. The report cracked across the desert. 1,200 meters away, the crew leader dropped. The other 5 froze, confused. They couldn't see where the shot came from. Didn't know if it was 1 shooter or 20. Hit. Crew leader down. Target 2. Radio operator. 1,220 meters. She worked the bolt. Smooth. Mechanical. The brass casing ejected and landed on the rocks with a soft clink. Second shot. The radio operator went down, clutching his chest. Now the mortar team knew they were under fire. They scattered. 3 ran for cover. 2 stayed, trying to save the weapon. Target 3, assistant gunner attempting to relocate weapon. She led him slightly, accounted for his movement. Third shot. He dropped across the mortar tube. The remaining 3 abandoned the position, ran into the darkness. She let them go. They weren't combat effective anymore. Mortar team neutralized. Engaging Group Bravo. She shifted targets. 900 meters. The machine gun team was setting up, orienting toward the fence line. They were going to provide covering fire for something. Then she saw it. 50 meters past the fence. Headlights. 3 vehicles approaching fast. Smugglers. The mortar team was supposed to suppress Fort Huachuca while the machine gun team covered the crossing. Military precision applied to criminal enterprise. Command, Sector 4. 3 vehicles approaching fence line. Machine gun team providing overwatch. Engage the gun team. Let Border Patrol handle the vehicles. Wren found the machine gunner. He was good. Setting up in a hull-down position behind rocks. Professional placement, but not good enough. She put the crosshairs on his head. 900 meters, moderate wind, easier than the mortar crew. Fourth shot. The machine gunner slumped forward. His assistant grabbed the gun, trying to get it into action. Fifth shot. Down. The remaining 6 fighters scattered. Some returned fire, but they were shooting blind. Muzzle flashes in the darkness. Bullets cracking overhead but nowhere close. Group Bravo broken. Multiple hostiles retreating. Count 6, no, 7 withdrawing to the south. Holloway was watching through his spotting scope, calling corrections, tracking targets. This was what her father had never had. A partner. someone watching his back. Outstanding shooting, Corporal. 8 confirmed. But we still have a problem. He didn't need to say it. Group Charlie, the counter-sniper element, 1,847 meters away. They'd been watching, learning, calculating where the shots came from. And now they knew. Wren felt it before she heard it. The subtle change in air pressure. The sense of being watched through a scope. Gunnery Sergeant, we need to relocate, now. Why? Because they've got our position. The bullet cracked past her head half a second later. Supersonic, close enough that she felt the pressure wave, close enough to part her hair. The second shot hit the rock where her head had been, spraying fragments. She was already moving, rolling left, finding new cover. Her father's training taking over. Never stay static. Never give them a second shot from the same position. Holloway moved with her. They repositioned 15 meters away, behind a larger boulder. Jesus Christ, he breathed. That was close. He's good, professional, probably the best they have. Can you locate him? She scanned the ridge where Group Charlie had been. Thermal signatures still there. But which one was the shooter? Then she saw it. Muzzle flash, faint, partially suppressed by a flash hider, but visible for a fraction of a second. 1,847 meters, the same distance as her morning qualification. But now it was dark, wind gusting, and the man on the other end was trying to kill her. Contact, Group Charlie shooter identified, bearing 273, range 1,847 meters. Holloway glassed the position. I see him, elevated position, good cover, he's got thermals, probably sees our heat signatures. Then we use that against him. She remembered her father's notes, the incomplete section on counter-sniper tactics. He'd written something about thermal camouflage, about using environment to break up your signature. She positioned herself behind the boulder so it blocked her body heat from the shooter's angle. Only the rifle barrel extended past cover. Gunnery Sergeant, spot my shot. I need exact wind at target. Holloway watched through his scope, studying mirage, studying indicators. Wind is 7 miles per hour, gusting to 9. Gust pattern every 11 seconds. Same as this morning. The desert had rhythms, patterns. You just had to listen. She watched her yarn, felt the wind on her face, counted heartbeats. The math was complex. 580 inches of drop, Coriolis effect, spin drift, temperature compensation, wind that varied second by second. But she'd made this shot before. She could make it again. The gust passed, calm window, 3 seconds, maybe 4. She adjusted, breathed, let her body settle into the rhythm it had learned over 10,000 hours. Squeezed, the rifle bucked. 3.4 seconds of flight time. She watched through the scope, saw the impact. 1,847 meters away, the muzzle flash went dark. Silence on the ridge. Holloway was glassing the position, verifying. Target down, no movement. That's a confirmed kill at 1,847 meters. Under fire, in darkness. Jesus, Corporal. Wren didn't respond. Just worked the bolt and scanned for additional threats. The remaining 2 spotters from Group Charlie were running, abandoning their position. She let them go. All hostile elements neutralized or retreating. Sector 4 is secure. Radio crackle. Sector 4 command, confirmed 8 hostile KIA, 0 friendly casualties. Outstanding work. Border Patrol has intercepted the vehicles. Mission complete. RTB when ready. Wren cleared her weapon, stood, looked at the dark stain on the ground where her father had died. He'd been killed at this range, from that same ridge, by a sniper who never missed. Until tonight. Holloway stood beside her. That was the finest piece of combat shooting I've ever seen, and I've been doing this for 16 years. It was math, Gunnery Sergeant, just math. Bullshit. That was art. That was mastery. That was... He paused. That was finishing what your father started. She looked at the ridge where El Fantasma had been, where he'd killed her father 3 years ago, where he'd died tonight. He taught me everything I needed. He just didn't live long enough to see me use it. He saw it, Corporal. Wherever he is, he saw it. They walked back to the Humvee in silence. Behind them, the desert reclaimed the battlefield. Wind erased boot prints. Darkness swallowed the evidence. By morning, there would be nothing left but brass and ghosts. But Wren carried something with her that the desert couldn't erase. Completion. Her father had died trying to make an impossible shot against an impossible enemy. She'd made the shot, killed the enemy, finished the mission. As they loaded into the Humvee, Lockhart's voice came over the radio. Sector 4, Command. Intel confirms hostile counter-sniper eliminated was El Fantasma. 23 confirmed kills on U.S. personnel. He's been operating in this sector for 6 years. You just closed a case that's been open since 2018. A pause. Your father would be proud, Corporal. Outstanding work. Wren keyed her mic. Thank you, Master Chief, but I didn't do it alone. Gunnery Sergeant Holloway spotted. Captain Mercer and Sergeant Cole provided security. Williams handled comms. This was a team effort. Copy that, but the shot was yours. Own it. She looked out at the mountains where her father had died, where she just avenged him. I own it, Master Chief, but I don't carry it alone anymore. That's the difference between me and him. Silence on the radio. Then quietly, that's the right answer, Corporal. Come on home. The Humvee rolled through the darkness, carrying 5 snipers back to base. Behind them, the Huachuca Mountains stood silent witness to what had happened. To legacy honored, to missions completed, to children who finished what their fathers started, and to the difference between working alone and working together. One led to death, the other led to victory. Wren understood that now. Her father had been brilliant, the best sniper of his generation. But he'd had a fatal flaw. She wouldn't repeat it. As they passed through the gates of Fort Huachuca, she made a silent promise to his memory. I'll be better than you, Dad. Not because I shoot better, but because I learned from your mistakes. I'll take your skills and add what you were missing. I'll honor your legacy by improving it. That's what children do for their parents. They stand on their shoulders and reach higher. The debriefing room at Fort Huachuca smelled like stale coffee and fluorescent lights. Dawn was breaking outside, painting the windows in shades of gold and amber, but inside everything was harsh, white light and metal chairs. Wren sat at a table across from 3 officers she didn't recognize. Intelligence specialists, judging by their insignia, the kind of people who lived in classified briefings and spoke in acronyms. Her rifle case sat on the floor beside her, still dirty from the night's work, still carrying the smell of gunpowder and desert dust. The senior officer, a lieutenant colonel with silver in his hair, and the look of a man who'd spent too many years in windowless rooms, spoke first. Corporal Ashford, for the record, can you confirm the events of last night? Yes, sir. My team deployed to Sector 4 at 23:15 hours. We observed hostile forces preparing to engage Fort Huachuca with indirect fire. We were given authorization to engage. I eliminated 8 hostile combatants over a 2-hour period. Ranges varied from 900 to 1,847 meters. 0 friendly casualties. Mission complete. She said it like she was reading from a manual, flat, professional. The way you reported facts that couldn't be argued with. The lieutenant colonel wrote something on his notepad. The final engagement, the counter-sniper at 1,847 meters. Walk me through that shot. Contact was established at 0147 hours. Hostile sniper initiated fire from elevated position. 2 rounds, both near misses. I relocated to covered position and identified his location through muzzle flash. Range was confirmed at 1,847 meters. Wind was 7 miles per hour, gusting to 9. I calculated for bullet drop of 580 inches, wind drift of 12 inches, Coriolis effect of 1.8 minutes, and spin drift of 1.2 minutes. I timed the shot between wind gusts. Hostile was eliminated with a single round. Silence in the room. The lieutenant colonel set down his pen. Corporal, that distance represents one of the longest confirmed kills in United States military history, under combat conditions, at night, against an active threat who was simultaneously engaging you. Do you understand the significance of what you accomplished? I completed my assigned mission, sir. That's not what I asked. Wren met his eyes. With respect, sir, I don't think about significance. I think about mathematics. The shot was possible because the conditions were calculable. I calculated them. I executed. That's the job. Something flickered across the lieutenant colonel's face. Not quite a smile, more like recognition of something he'd seen before in professional warriors who didn't know how to process their own competence. The hostile sniper you eliminated has been identified as Rafael Mendoza, known in cartel circles as El Fantasma. 23 confirmed kills on U.S. personnel over 6 years. He was responsible for the death of Border Patrol consultants, federal agents, and, he paused, your father, Master Gunnery Sergeant Flint Ashford. Wren's expression didn't change. I'm aware, sir. How do you feel about that? About what, sir? About killing the man who killed your father. She was quiet for a long moment, not because she didn't know the answer, because she was deciding how much truth to give them. I feel the same way I feel about every confirmed kill, sir. I feel nothing. Emotion is for after the mission. During the mission, there's only the target and the mathematics required to reach it. That's a practiced answer, Corporal. Yes, sir, because it's true. The lieutenant colonel closed his folder. You're being recommended for the Silver Star. Your actions last night prevented a mortar attack on Fort Huachuca that could have killed dozens of personnel. You eliminated a high-value target who's been a priority for U.S. law enforcement for 6 years. And you did it with such precision that it's going to be studied in sniper schools for the next decade. I don't need a medal, sir. I need to get back to work. That's not your decision. It's already been submitted. He stood. The other 2 officers followed. One more thing. Master Chief Lockhart has requested your transfer to Marine Scout Sniper School at Quantico. Instructor position. He's putting together a new advanced training program and wants you to run the marksmanship component. Wren's stomach dropped. Sir, with respect, I'm not qualified to be an instructor. I'm 25 years old. I've been a sniper for 3 years. You just made an 1847-meter shot under combat conditions. You're more qualified than 99% of the instructors currently at Quantico. And frankly, we need people who can teach fundamentals, not gadgets, not electronics. The old-school observation and calculation methods that your father pioneered. My father died using those methods, sir. No, he died working alone. There's a difference. And from what Master Chief Lockhart tells me, you've already learned that lesson. You worked as part of a team last night. You trusted your spotter. You coordinated with your security element. You did everything your father should have done and didn't. The lieutenant colonel moved toward the door, then stopped. Your father was the best solo sniper of his generation. But solo snipers don't win wars. Teams do. Teach the next generation how to be both. How to have his skills without his flaws. That's how you honor his memory. He left. The door closed with a soft click. Wren sat alone in the white room with her father's rifle and the weight of expectations she'd never asked for. 8 months later, she stood in a classroom at Marine Corps Base Quantico, looking at 18 faces that were all expecting her to fail. The Advanced Scout Sniper School was exactly what it sounded like. The best shooters from across the Marine Corps, selected after years of combat experience, sent here to become even better, to learn the edge cases in extreme conditions, to master the impossible shots. Most of the instructors were seasoned veterans with 20 years of service, master gunnery sergeants with chests full of ribbons and faces full of scars. Wren was a corporal, 25 years old, female, small. She could see it in their eyes as she walked to the front of the classroom. The calculation, the dismissal, the assumption that she was a diversity hire or a political appointment or someone's idea of progress without substance. She'd seen that look before. She let them think whatever they wanted. The classroom was standard military issue. Whiteboard, projector, uncomfortable chairs bolted to the floor. No windows, just fluorescent lights and the smell of too many bodies in too small a space. Wren set her rifle case on the desk and faced them. My name is Corporal Wren Ashford. I'm your marksmanship instructor for the Advanced Fundamentals course. Before we start, I want to establish baseline. How many of you have made a confirmed kill past 1,200 meters? 12 hands went up. Past 1,500? 8 hands. Past 1,800? No hands. She opened her rifle case, pulled out her M110, set it on the desk where everyone could see it. Standard issue, no upgrades, no custom parts, just a rifle that had seen hard use and still function. This is an M110 semi-automatic sniper system. Retail price $8,000. It's what I used in Afghanistan to make 73 confirmed kills. It's what I used at Fort Huachuca to eliminate 8 hostile combatants in one night. And it's what I used to make an 1847-meter shot on a moving target under combat conditions. She picked up her father's scope, showed them the worn brass and scratched glass. This is a Leupold Mark IV from 1991. It belonged to my father, Master Gunnery Sergeant Flint Ashford. He used it in Desert Storm and Somalia. It's older than most of you. The glass is scratched, the finish is worn, and it's never missed a shot that mattered. She set it down gently. The reason I'm showing you this is simple. You all came here thinking equipment matters most. That expensive rifles and electronic scopes and ballistic computers are what make you deadly. They don't. They make you dependent. One of the students raised his hand, Corporal Dalton Graves, 24 years old, fresh from deployment, carrying the particular arrogance of someone who'd survived combat and thought that meant he knew everything. Ma'am, with respect, that's not realistic anymore. Modern warfare requires modern tools. If you're not using ballistic computers and laser rangefinders, you're handicapping yourself. Stand up, Corporal Graves. He stood, 6 feet tall, confident, the kind of confidence that came from never being challenged. What's your longest confirmed kill? 1,300 meters, ma'am. Helmand Province, 2023. What rifle were you using? Custom Accuracy International, $20,000 build. Schmidt and Bender Optics, Kestrel Weather Station, Applied Ballistics Computer. And how long did it take you to make the shot? From identification to trigger pull? About 4 minutes, ma'am. I was calculating wind, temperature, air density, Coriolis. 4 minutes, in combat, while the target could move or take cover or disappear. The computer needs time to process data, ma'am. And if the batteries die, if your Kestrel fails, if your ballistic computer glitches, what then? Graves hesitated. I'd estimate, use my training. No, you'd fail, because you've trained yourself to depend on technology instead of observation. You've outsourced your brain to a computer, and when that computer isn't available, you're not a sniper anymore. You're just a man with an expensive rifle. The room was silent. Wren turned to the whiteboard, started writing. Bullet drop formula. Distance in meters multiplied by gravity constant, divided by velocity squared, multiplied by time of flight. For a 7.62 NATO round at 1,800 meters, that's approximately 580 inches, 48 feet. You need to know this number without a calculator. You need to feel it in your bones. She wrote more formulas. Wind drift, Coriolis effect, spin drift. These are the fundamentals. Physics doesn't need batteries. Gravity doesn't glitch. Wind follows patterns that you can observe without a computer. Your job isn't to operate technology. Your job is to understand the environment so completely that you become part of it. Another student raised his hand. Corporal James Torrance, quiet until now, thoughtful expression. Ma'am, I understand the theory, but practically speaking, how do we compete with shooters who have better equipment? If they can calculate faster with computers, won't they always have an advantage? Excellent question. The answer is no, because computers calculate based on perfect inputs. Garbage in, garbage out. If your wind reading is wrong, the computer gives you a perfect solution to the wrong problem. She pulled out a piece of yarn, tied it to a pencil. This is my wind indicator. It costs nothing. It's always available, and it tells me exactly what the wind is doing at my position. But more importantly, it forces me to observe, to see the environment, to notice things that electronic sensors miss. She walked to the window, opened it, held out the yarn. Wind at this position is 4 miles per hour from the west. But look at the trees 300 meters away. See how the leaves are moving? That's 6 miles per hour. Look at the flag on the headquarters building, 7 miles per hour. The wind isn't constant. It varies with distance, elevation, and terrain. She turned back to the class. A computer measures wind at one point and assumes it's the same everywhere. A sniper observes wind at multiple points and builds a model of how it's changing. That's the difference between good shooting and great shooting. Observation beats calculation. Always. Graves raised his hand again. So you're saying we should throw away our computers and use yarn? No, I'm saying you should understand the principles so well that you can shoot with or without technology. The computer should confirm what you already know, not teach you what you don't. She picked up her rifle. Tomorrow we're going to the range. You're all going to shoot at 1,500 meters, first with all your electronics, then without. We'll see who's actually competent and who's just operating expensive equipment. The class shifted uncomfortably. Dismissed. Study chapters 3 through 7 in your field manual. There will be a test. They filed out, talking among themselves. Wren heard fragments of conversation. She's insane. 1,800 meters with that antique? I'd like to see it. My grandfather shot like that. Old school. Doesn't work anymore. She let them think whatever they needed to think. Tomorrow, they'd learn. The range at Quantico was 5 kilometers of carefully groomed terrain designed to simulate every possible shooting scenario. Hills, valleys, urban structures, clear fields, everything a sniper might encounter in real combat. Wren stood at the 1,500-meter line with 18 students and a sense that this was going to be a long day. First rotation. With electronics, show me what you can do. Graves stepped up first, pulled out his full kit, Kestrel weather station, laser rangefinder, ballistic calculator. He spent 3 minutes taking readings, inputting data, adjusting his scope. Finally, he settled into position and fired. Hit, 4 inches left of center. Good, professional, exactly what expensive equipment should produce. Torrance went next. Similar process, similar result. 3 inches high. One by one, they worked through the line. All hits, all within 6 inches of center. Competent shooting supported by competent technology. Then Wren called a halt. Second rotation, no electronics. Rangefinder stays in your pack. Weather station stays in your pack. Ballistic computer stays in your pack. You get your rifle, your scope, and your brain. Show me what you learned in basic training. Graves looked sick. Ma'am, we don't practice this way. I haven't estimated range manually since sniper school 3 years ago. Then today you remember. Graves, you're up. 1,500 meters. Give me a cold bore shot with no technology. He settled into position, stared through his scope for a long time. She could see him thinking, calculating, trying to remember formulas he'd outsourced to electronics. Finally, he fired. Miss, 2 feet low. What happened, Corporal? I estimated the range wrong. I thought it was 1,300. How did you estimate? I looked at the target size and compared it to known reference sizes. And what's the actual size of that target? I don't know, ma'am. It's an IPSC silhouette, 30 inches tall, 18 inches wide. If you don't know the actual size, you can't estimate range. Basic sniper school material, Corporal. Did you forget? His jaw tightened. No, ma'am, I just rely on the laser. Which means you've atrophied a fundamental skill. Torrance, you're up. Torrance did better. Estimated range within 100 meters, but still missed by 8 inches low because he didn't account for temperature effects on bullet velocity. One by one, they all failed. Some by inches, some by feet. But failure was failure. Wren let them struggle for 2 hours. Let them miss. Let them realize how dependent they'd become on technology that could fail. Then she stepped to the line. Watch carefully. This is how it's done. She settled behind her M110. No electronics. Just her father's scope and a piece of yarn. First, she estimated range. Not by guessing, by using the mil-dot reticle in her scope. She knew the target was 30 inches tall. She measured how many mils it subtended in her scope. Basic trigonometry gave her the range. 1,520 meters. Close enough. Next, wind. She watched the yarn at her position, watched dust patterns at mid-range, watched the flag near the target, built a mental model of how wind was changing across the space. 5 miles per hour at her position, 6 at mid-range, 7 at the target, average 6 miles per hour for ballistic purposes. Temperature was 78 degrees, higher than standard conditions. That meant thinner air, higher velocity, less drop. She subtracted approximately 0.3 minutes of angle from her elevation adjustment. Bullet drop at 1520 was 392 inches. 32 feet, 8 inches. She dialed elevation, added windage for the 6 mile per hour crosswind, added Coriolis in spin drift. The entire process took 90 seconds. She breathed, settled, squeezed, hit, dead center. She stood and turned to face the class. That's fundamentals. That's observation. That's what happens when you understand principles instead of just operating equipment. Any questions? Silence. Then Graves spoke. His voice was different, quieter, less arrogant. Ma'am, how do we learn that? The same way you learn anything. Practice, repetition, 10,000 hours of doing it wrong until you start doing it right. My father taught me this when I was 6 years old. I've been practicing for 19 years. You're all starting late, but you're starting. She picked up her rifle. Here's your homework. Tonight you're going to estimate the range to 10 different objects on this base. Write down your estimates. Tomorrow we'll measure them with lasers and see how close you were. Every night this week, 10 more objects. By Friday, you should be accurate within 10%. If you're not, you do it again next week. Torrance raised his hand. Ma'am, what about wind reading? Same principle. Pick a location. Observe the wind for 10 minutes. Write down your estimate. Then use a kestrel to measure actual wind. Compare your estimate to reality. Do this until your estimates are within 1 mile per hour of actual. Should take about a month if you practice daily. Graves looked overwhelmed. Ma'am, that's hours of practice every day, on top of our regular training schedule. Yes, marksmanship isn't a skill you acquire. It's a skill you maintain. My father practiced wind reading every single day for 30 years, even on days when he wasn't shooting. Observation is a habit, not a hobby. She started walking toward the armory. The class followed. One more thing. Everything I just taught you, it's what my father taught me. And it got him killed because he applied it alone. He was so obsessed with individual mastery that he forgot the most important principle of all. She stopped, turned to face them. Snipers work in pairs. One shoots, one spots. The spotter isn't your assistant. He's your second brain, your backup, your insurance policy against your own mistakes. My father forgot that, died for it. Don't make his error. Torrance spoke up. So tomorrow we work in pairs? Tomorrow and every day after. You'll rotate partners every week. By the end of this course, you'll have worked with every other student. You'll learn their rhythms, their thinking, how they observe. And when you deploy, you'll be able to work with any spotter because you've trained with 18 different ones. The class filed into the armory to clean weapons. Ren stayed outside, watching the sun set over the Quantico ranges. She thought about her father, about how he'd taught her to shoot but not to trust, how he'd made her deadly but isolated, how his brilliance had been matched by his blind spot. She was teaching differently, building snipers who were just as skilled but twice as adaptable, creating teams instead of lone wolves. That was her father's legacy, improved. That was her contribution. 6 weeks into the course, Graves caught her after class. "Ma'am, can I ask you something personal?" "Depends on what it is, Corporal." "The shot at Fort Huachuca, 1,847 meters. How did you know you could make it?" Ren was quiet for a moment. "I didn't. But you took it anyway." "The mission required it. There was a hostile counter-sniper at that range who'd already killed my father from that exact position 3 years earlier. If I didn't eliminate him, he'd eliminate me or someone else on my team. The math said it was possible. That had to be enough. And you made it, under combat conditions, at night, while taking fire." "Yes." "How?" She looked at him, really looked, saw past the arrogance to the genuine question underneath. "Because I prepared for it, not the day before, not the week before, every day for 19 years. Every time I practiced wind reading or range estimation or calculated bullet drop in my head. Every boring afternoon on my grandfather's ranch shooting at tin cans. Every repetition that felt pointless at the time. It all accumulated into muscle memory that could execute under pressure." She picked up her rifle case. "That's the secret, Corporal Graves. There is no secret, just preparation meeting opportunity. You want to make impossible shots? Start by making the easy ones 10,000 times. The impossible becomes possible when you've done everything that comes before it so many times that it's automatic." "How long until I can shoot like you?" Wrong question. Right question is, how long until you can shoot like the best version of yourself? Maybe 2 years of daily practice, maybe 5. Depends how much you're willing to work. She started to leave, then stopped. "My father once told me something. He said, excellence doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs to exist. That's the standard I hold myself to. Not compared to other people, just compared to the version of myself yesterday. Am I better today? If yes, keep going. If no, figure out why." Graves nodded slowly. "Thank you, ma'am. That helps." "Good. Now go practice your range estimation. You were off by 30% this morning. That's not acceptable." 14 months after Fort Huachuca, Ren stood in front of a different classroom. This one was larger, held 32 students instead of 18, and included 4 women, which was more female Marine Scout snipers than had existed in the entire Corps 3 years ago. One of them caught Ren's attention immediately. Private Ember Kane, 22 years old, 5'4", carrying a rifle case that looked like it had seen hard use and an expression that Ren recognized from her own mirror. The expression of someone who'd been underestimated their entire life and had stopped trying to convince people otherwise. After the initial briefing, Ren approached her. "Private Kane, that rifle case has seen some miles." "Yes, ma'am, it was my father's. Gunnery Sergeant Cole Kane. He was killed in Helmand, 2012. Ren felt something shift in her chest. "What unit?" 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. He was a scout sniper. Died providing overwatch during a patrol that got ambushed. "Open your case." Ember set it on the desk and opened it carefully. Inside was an M40A5, the Marine Corps standard bolt-action sniper rifle. It was old, well-maintained but showing age. The stock was worn smooth where hands had gripped it for years, and the scope was a Leupold Mark IV. Same model as her father's, different serial number, but the same worn brass finish, the same scratched glass. He gave this to me when I was 16, Ember said, made me promise to take care of it, to use it right, to not waste what it represented. Wren picked up the scope carefully, held it to the light, saw the scratches and wear patterns that marked a life spent in hard places. Did he ever talk about Somalia? 1993? Ember's eyes widened. How did you know? Because this scope is identical to one I have, and my father served in Somalia in 1993 with a man named Cole Kane. They were on the same Overwatch team during Black Hawk Down. Your father was Flint Ashford? Yes. They looked at each other for a long moment. Two women carrying rifles from men who'd served together 30 years ago, separated by a generation, but connected by legacy. Your father taught my father how to read wind, Ember said quietly. He used to tell me stories about this Marine who could shoot in sandstorms, who made impossible shots look easy, who never stopped practicing, even on days when they weren't in combat. My father talked about Cole Kane too, said he was one of the best spotters he'd ever worked with, said Kane saved his life twice with accurate wind calls. Wren set the scope down gently. Which means you and I are carrying more than rifles, Private Kane. We're carrying knowledge that spans 3 generations. My father's father taught him. He taught me. He also taught your father. Your father taught you. And now I'm going to teach you what all of them learned. Will you teach me the way they taught you? No, I'll teach you better. They taught individual excellence. I teach team excellence. They taught how to be deadly alone. I teach how to be deadly together. Because working alone is what got them killed, and I won't let that happen to you. Ember nodded slowly, understanding the weight of what was being offered. There's something else, Wren said. This course culminates in a final qualification. 1,600 meters. Team shot. You and a partner. You'll need to trust someone completely, to work with them so closely that you think as one person. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. My father always said sniping was a marriage. 2 people, 1 purpose. He was right. And he learned that from my father, even though my father never quite believed it himself. You and I are going to prove they were right. Both of them. 12 weeks later, the final qualification. The range stretched 1,600 meters across Virginia hills and valleys. 32 students had been reduced to 28 through attrition and voluntary drops. The 4 who remained included Ember Kane and her partner, Corporal Marcus Fletcher. They'd been paired randomly 6 weeks ago. Fletcher was everything Ember wasn't. 6'1", from Texas. Loud, confident, the kind of personality that filled rooms. But they learned to work together, to communicate, to become a single unit with 2 bodies. Now they faced the final test. Wren stood at the firing line with Lockhart beside her. This is it, Lockhart said quietly. 3 generations of snipers culminating in this moment. Flint taught Cole Kane and mentored me. You learned from Flint. Ember learned from Cole. And now Ember and Fletcher have learned from you. It's like watching legacy become physical. It's just a qualification, Master Chief. No, it's proof that knowledge doesn't die, that excellence can be passed down, that each generation can improve on what came before. The targets appeared, steel silhouettes at 1,600 meters. Fletcher settled into the spotting position, Ember behind the rifle. Wren had taught them everything she knew, range estimation without lasers, wind reading without electronics, ballistics calculated in their heads instead of computers. The old ways improved by new understanding. Fletcher called the wind. 5 miles per hour, steady. Mirage shows 6 at target. Split the difference, call it 5.5. Ember adjusted. Copy. Elevation for 1,600 is 360 inches. Wind is 9 inches right. Coriolis 0.8. Spin 0.5. Ready. Send it, the rifle barked. 1,600 meters away, the target rang. Hit. 3 inches from center. Excellent. Professional. The kind of shooting that proved they'd learned not just the mechanics, but the philosophy. They ran through 5 more targets, 5 more hits, all within 4 inches of center. When they finished, they stood and faced Ren. "Ma'am, did we pass?" Ren looked at the targets, looked at their faces, saw her father's legacy living in them, improved, refined, made better by each generation that carried it forward. "Yes, Private Kane, you passed, both of you." Ember's eyes welled up. She fought it back, professional to the end. "Thank you, ma'am, for teaching us, for not giving up on the old ways." "I didn't teach you the old ways. I taught you the right ways. There's a difference. Old isn't automatically good, but fundamentals are eternal. Physics doesn't change. Wind follows patterns. Gravity is constant. Those truths don't need updating. They just need understanding." Fletcher spoke up. "Ma'am, what happens now? Where do we go from here?" "You deploy. You serve. You become better every day. And someday, when you're done shooting, you teach someone else. You pass it forward. That's the only way knowledge survives. Through transmission, generation to generation, teacher to student, forever." Lockhart stepped forward. "There's one more thing. We're dedicating this range today. Official ceremony at 1400 hours. We're naming it the Master Gunnery Sergeant Flint Ashford Memorial Range, in recognition of his contributions to Marine Corps sniper craft and his legacy through his daughter." Ren's throat tightened. She didn't speak. Couldn't. "Your father was brilliant but flawed," Lockhart continued. "You took his brilliance and fixed his flaws. You made his legacy better than he could have. That's the greatest honor a child can give a parent. Improvement. Evolution. Carrying forward the good and leaving behind the bad." He handed her a folded flag, American colors, the same kind they draped over her father's coffin 3 years ago. "This will fly over the range every day. Every Marine who trains here will know his name, will know his story, will know that excellence spans generations when it's taught right." The ceremony at 1400 hours was simple. No speeches, no politicians, just Marines and a flag and a plaque that read, "Master Gunnery Sergeant Flint Ashford Memorial Range," dedicated to the principle that excellence is not kept but shared. That knowledge lives through teaching. That legacy is not what you accomplish, but what you pass forward. Ren stood at attention as they raised the flag. Ember Kane stood beside her, Fletcher beside Ember, 26 other students in formation behind them. 3 generations of snipers, all connected, all carrying the same fundamental knowledge forward into new contexts. Her father had been brilliant, the best of his time, but he'd believed excellence was solitary, that asking for help was weakness, that the measure of a sniper was what they could accomplish alone. He'd been wrong, and his wrongness had killed him. Ren had taken his skills and added what he lacked: teamwork, trust, the understanding that 2 people working together were always better than 1 person working alone. That was her contribution to his legacy. That was how she'd honored him, not by copying him, by improving him. As the flag reached the top of the pole and snapped in the Virginia wind, Ren thought about the 1,847-meter shot, the one her father had tried twice and missed, the one she'd made under combat conditions. He'd taught her the fundamentals, the math, the observation skills, everything she needed, but she'd added the missing piece: the willingness to trust others, to work as part of something larger than herself. That combination had made the impossible possible, and now she was teaching it to others. The flag flew. The ceremony ended. Students dispersed to prepare for graduation tomorrow. Ember approached Ren one last time. "Ma'am, I know we're graduating and deploying, but I need to tell you something." "Go ahead, Private." "My father wrote me letters before he died, 17 of them, one for each year until I turned 30. I just opened the one for age 22. You want to know what it said? Ren waited. It said, "If you're reading this, you made it through sniper school. I'm proud, but remember, the rifle doesn't make you deadly. The team makes you deadly. Find someone you trust. Work with them. Never work alone. That's how you come home." Tears ran down Ember's face now. She didn't bother hiding them. He knew, ma'am. He knew before he died that working alone was the mistake. He just didn't live long enough to change it. But he made sure I learned it. And you taught me how to apply it. Ren put her hand on Ember's shoulder. Your father and mine, they learned the same lesson too late. We learned it in time. And now we teach it to others. That's how we honor them. By being what they wished they could have been. Ember nodded, stepped back, saluted. Ren returned it. Then Ember turned and walked toward the barracks. Tomorrow she'd graduate. 3 months after that, she'd deploy to whatever war zone needed snipers. She'd work with a spotter, trust her team, apply everything 3 generations of snipers had learned. And someday, if she survived, she'd teach someone else. That was legacy, not monuments or medals or ceremonies, just knowledge passed forward, one person to the next, forever. Ren walked to the memorial range one last time before sunset, stood at the 1,600-meter line where Ember had qualified, looked at the targets that still bore the marks of today's shooting. She pulled out her father's notebook. The leather was even more worn now, the pages more fragile, but his handwriting was still clear, his calculations still accurate, his wisdom still relevant. She turned to the last page, the incomplete counter-sniper section, the final entry he'd written before he died. Ren, if they ever come for us, you'll need this. I didn't finish. You will. Dad. She picked up a pen, added a single line below his. I finished it, Dad. Made the shot. Killed El Fantasma. Honored your memory. But I did it better than you would have. I did it with backup, with trust, with a team. That's my improvement to your legacy. That's my gift to you. She closed the notebook, put it back in her pack. The sun set over Quantico. The flag snapped in the wind. Tomorrow, 18 new Marine Scout snipers would graduate and deploy to wherever America needed them. They'd carry rifles and scopes and notebooks full of ballistics tables. But more importantly, they'd carry knowledge, understanding, the accumulated wisdom of 3 generations of warriors who'd learned through triumph and tragedy that excellence was never solitary, that teamwork multiplied skill, that trust was a weapon as powerful as any rifle. Her father had been brilliant, but incomplete. She'd completed him, made his legacy whole. And now that complete legacy would spread through a new generation of snipers who'd never known him, but would carry his wisdom forward. That was immortality, not living forever, but teaching so well that your knowledge lived forever through others. Ren walked away from the range as darkness fell. Behind her, the memorial flag flew over empty fields and silent targets. But tomorrow those fields would fill with students. Those targets would ring with impacts, and her father's name would be spoken by people who'd never met him, but who owed their skills to his decades of dedication. Legacy wasn't what you accomplished. Legacy was what you passed forward, and hers was just beginning.